What's up YouTube, Freight Hero here. I'm going to explain to you Tock Worker and how it works in the deck, since a lot of people are kind of shaken up by the whole Tock being on the watch list and people are still thinking Dran is the best starter, which I kind of disagree with, but anyway. So starting off with the most basic combo, we just assume the best card you have in your hand to go off with is just one Melon, and you have one open counterblast, and this is your first stride. So what you're going to do is swing with this Melon Lane, use the skill on Tock, shove it into Soul here, and then call History Maker. Well, Melon's bound at this point because of Tock. So then you can continue resolving Melon's skill. You can Superior Call the stand trigger somewhere. It doesn't particularly matter where. And then at this point, you can swing with the Heavy Metal Phoenix, flip a random card, we flip next stage because we're cool or something, and then this gets bound, and then we call this. We use the skill from the bind zone of the stand trigger to draw, we'll just draw like 2 cards, with this being on the bottom of the deck at this point technically, but it's a little awkward because of how I'm doing this. So we shuffle back a card, and this is now in our hand. And then moving on, we now can swing with this, call the stand again. This is back in the deck. Swing with History Maker, assuming you hit triggers or not. It'll depend if you hit or not. Skill, Counterblast, bind again, call Melon back, resolve the bind or the stand trigger that's in the bind zone, so you draw another 2. So we'll just draw 2, shuffle 1 back, and the stand's in the deck again. I just don't want to have to move it, so because if you don't know, the stand's effect is to put it at the bottom of your deck as part of the cost when it's in the bind zone. So it is already going to be at the bottom, but you know, for video's sake, I have to do it this way. So you have another Melon standing again, and then you swing again, and at this point you probably don't want to lose the trigger in your deck, but it's up to you if you want to, because if you're running more than one copy of Tock, you can just call a Tock somewhere. So end of turn, this is shuffled back by the way, because you called the Tock. So you net a positive 2 cards extra to your hand, not counting triple drive, because we didn't show the triple drives here. And then this goes back to the bottom of your deck, and returning from your bind zone is the Melon. So you can either put it back in that same column you had earlier, or in that lane to protect her so she can't be hit in the front row, and then you still have that. And that's a solid +2 using basically no cards. So that's combo number 1, very basic, really solid plus. It's not as, I mean, it gets the same plus with Chrono Dran, but this is a very basic combo. And we'll move on to the second combo here after this. Alright, so here's part 2A, I'd like to call it, because there's at least 2 different variants that I can imagine this going. So here's the first one. You just swing with Melon, use her skill, back to deck, call Tock from deck, swing, skill, bind, call History Maker, call stand trigger, swing Vanguard, skill, flip, skill, bind, call, skill from bind zone, draw 2, shuffle 1 back, so that's now in your hand. And then triple drive, usually triggers will go here, swing with her skill, Tock skill, bind, call a grade 2 and a 0, so call, swing with History Maker, skill, bind, or that's not the bind zone, bind, and then call a grade 1, so we can call GG over here. Choose order. I'll just use stand first, so stand skill, draw 2, shuffle 1 back, GG skill, Soul Blast 2, and draw. So again, we have 3 cards in hand, and then we can swing for a solid number, 17. And then end of turn, GG goes back. Well, basically everything goes back, and we've still got 2 melims to do stuff again next turn. And then if you have Uluru, you can G-guard and send back a Tock. So next turn you can swing, call back a Tock, if you're not main decking 3 anyway. And then have this one, and then do more shenanigans like that. That's why you see multiple Tocks in the deck, because of plays like that. And I'll show you a different variant using more melims in part 2B. Alright, so we're here with part 2B. I don't have 3 starters, so bear with me on how I do this. So, like I said, this is going to be a little more risky, because this swing is happening first. Skill, bind, that's not counterblast yet. Call the history maker, call second starter, melim swing, skill, bind, call grade 2, call that trigger, skill, flip, copy, skill, well, bind, call, third melim, skill of stand, draw your 2, shuffle 1 back, with that going back to deck, and then this is your hand, and then swing, skill, call, this is back in deck, skill, assuming all triggers went here, or here, bind, call melim, skill, draw your 2, shuffle 1 back, that's in the deck again, and then swing, and then at this point, this is where you could just go into starter number 3, and then end of turn, these are back in deck, and then these 2 come back, probably throw one in the back. You could either throw it here again for the combo, or if you wanted to, you could throw the starter there and then do this, just to be extra safe if you don't want someone trying to attack the melim lane, because this is exactly what you started with still a +2 and a solid amount of attacks you got through, and you did build soul, because this is technically in soul too. So your GG, if you do GG time leap plays, you can technically do it twice. Her Soul Blast 2 to draw. So yeah, that basically sets up your soul, and then if you do that, you can, like I said before, you can G-guard, send these back if you want to. And yeah, that's basically combo 2B. Alright, moving on. So this is just more of a bonus thing, because the combos I explained can interchange with depending on what cards you have, but those are just the basic, like, combos you can do. So I just wanted to show you guys what it kind of looks like on a next stage turn, assuming you're running the deck with Tock. Like, let's say you're running the 2 starters, so you still blasted 1 from, like, GG earlier, and you still have 1 that you caught off of a melim. So this is your next stage turn. As normal, you start off with this play. You call whatever grade 2. You could call a history maker if you want to. It's pretty solid. And then the stand. You do burn through a lot of counterblasts with this, but the attack extensions on the next stage turn are pretty solid. So we bind and we call a grade 1. So we can get a booster for this history maker. And then we can resolve the stand, draw 2, shuffle 1 back, stands back in the deck. And then if you want to, you can do that. Counterblast another card, bind that, call a 3. So you're either going to call that, or as some Japanese players like to play, we run that. Because if you have the counterblast, you can spin back a grade 1 or lower. So then you have this, and then you can go swing with next stage. And then, you know, you do your normal stuff. And if you hit your stand, Japanese players do run anywhere between like 2 to 8 stands. It really depends, because the more stands you run, the more plays you have. So that's completely up to you how many you play, because if you do hit that stand, then you got a nice solid lane there. And you did get off 1 attack here, 1 attack here, and then we still got that standing, Vanguard attack, and another Vanguard attack. So this turn just gets more pressure in than it would before. I mean, you could kind of do the same thing with a Dran. It's just not as, you know, solid. So like if you had a Dran instead of this starter, like say that was a Chrono Dran, then well, normally if you have Dran, it would probably be in your deck. So skill, Dran, in rest, that's not there. That, then, you know, you could bind and then get the Chrono Jet in the grade 1 to do it that way, but that's its own combo. The TikTok play is pretty consistent, a lot of extra pressure, that's why I like it, and I did show you guys the combos from earlier, so there's always that too. And I should believe that's everything I wanted to cover. I'll catch you guys later.